All right, time for Chapter 3 of Odd and the Frost Giants. Chapter 3, The Night Conversation. Odd had imagined that the side of salmon would feed him for a week or more. But bears and foxes and eagles all, he discovered, eat salmon, and he felt that feeding them was the least he could do to thank them for seeing him home. They ate until it was gone, but only Odd and the eagle seemed satisfied. The fox and the bear both looked like they were still hungry. "We'll find more food tomorrow," said Odd. "Sleep now." The animals stared at him. He walked over to the straw mattress and climbed into it, placing the crutch carefully against the wall to pull himself up when he woke. The bed didn't smell like his father at all, he realized as he lay down. It just smelled like straw. Odd closed his eyes, and he was asleep. Dreams of darkness, of flashes, of moments, nothing he could hold on to, nothing that comforted him. And then into the dream came a booming, gloomy voice that said, "It wasn't my fault." A higher voice, bitterly amused, said, "Oh, right. I told you not to go pushing that tree down. You just didn't listen." "I was hungry. I could smell the honey. You don't know what it's like smelling that honey. It was better than mead, better than roasted goose." And then the gloomy voice, so bass that it made Odd's stomach vibrated, changed its tone. "And you, of all people, don't need to go blaming anyone else. It's because of you we're in this mess. I thought we had a deal. I thought we weren't going to keep harping on about a trivial little mistake. You call this trivial?" And then a third voice, high and raw, screeched, "Silence!" And there is Odd sleeping in his bed with the animals looking at him. There was silence. Odd rolled over. There was a glow from the fire, enough to see the inside of the hut, enough to confirm to Odd that there were not another 3 people in there with him. It was just him and the fox and the bear and the eagle. Whatever they are, thought Odd, they don't seem to eat people. He sat up, leaned against the wall. The bear and the eagle both ignored him. The fox darted him a green-eyed glance. "You were talking," said Odd. The animals looked at Odd and at one another. If they did not actually say, "Who, us?" it was there in their expression. It was the way they held themselves. "Somebody was talking," said Odd, "and it wasn't me. There isn't anyone else in here, which means it was you lot, and there's no point in arguing." "We weren't arguing," said the bear, "because we can't talk." Then it said, "Oops." The fox and the eagle glared at the bear, who put a paw over its eyes and looked ashamed of itself. Odd sighed. "Which one of you wants to explain what's going on?" he said. "Nothing's going on," said the fox brightly. "Just a few talking animals, nothing to worry about, happens every day. We'll be out of your hair first thing in the morning." The eagle fixed Odd with its one good eye. Then it turned to the fox. "Tell!" The fox shifted uncomfortably. "Why me?" "Oh," said the bear, "I don't know. Possibly because it's all your fault." "That's a bit much," replied the fox, "blaming the whole thing on a chap like that. It wasn't like I set out to do this. It could have happened to any of us." "What could?" asked Odd, exasperated. "And why can you talk?" The bear pushed itself up on all fours. It made a rumbling noise, then said, "We can talk because, O mortal child, do not be afraid. Beneath these animal disguises we wear, well, not actually disguises, I mean we are actually a bear and a fox and a big bird, which is a rotten sort of thing to happen, but where was I? "Gods!" screeched the eagle. "Gods?" said Odd. There's the eagle with his one good eye. "Aye, gods," said the bear. "I was just getting to that. I am great Thor, Lord of Thunder. The eagle is Lord Odin, All-Father, greatest of the gods, and this runt-eared, meddling fox is Loki," said the fox smoothly, "blood brother to the gods, smartest, sharpest, most brilliant of all the inhabitants of Asgard, or so they say." "Brilliant," snorted the bear. "You would have fallen for it, anyone would," said the fox. "Fallen for what?" said Odd. A flash of green eyes, a sigh, and the fox began. "I'll tell you, and you'll see. It could have happened to anyone. So Asgard, home of the mighty, in the middle of a plain surrounded by an impregnable wall built for us by a frost giant, and it was due to me, I should add, that the wall did not cost us the giant's fee, which was unreasonably high." "Freya," said the bear. "The giant wanted Freya, most lovely of the goddesses, with obviously the exception of Sif, my own little love, and it wanted the sun and the moon." "If you interrupt me one more time," said the fox, "one more time, I will not only stop talking, but I shall go off on my own and leave you two to fend for yourselves." The bear said, "Yes, but not one word." The bear sat silent. The fox said, "In the great hall of Odin sat all the gods, drinking mead, eating and telling stories. They drank and bragged and fought and boasted and drank all through the night and well into the small hours. The women had gone to bed hours since, and now the fires in the hall were burning low, and most of the gods slept where they sat, heads resting on the wooden tables." And there is a picture of Loki. Ooh. Good picture here of the giant that wanted Freya. Even great Odin slept in his high chair, his single eye closed in sleep. And yet there was one among the gods who had drunk and eaten more than any of the others and was still not sleepy. This was I, Loki, called Skywalker, and I was neither sleepy yet, not even a little. The bear made a noise, a small, grumpy harumph of disbelief. The fox looked at him sharply. "I said one word." "That wasn't a word," said the bear. "I just made a noise. So, you weren't sleepy?" "Right, I wasn't. I wandered out from the hall, and I walked, with my shoes that step on the air, up to the top of the wall around Asgard, and I looked out over the wall. In the moonlight, sitting beneath the wall, staring up at me, I saw the most beautiful woman anyone had ever seen. She had golden hair, perfection. In a voice like the striking of a harp string, she called out to me, 'Hail, bravest warrior,' she said. 'Hail yourself,' I said. 'Hail, most beautiful of creatures.' At which she laughed prettily, and her eyes sparkled, and I knew she liked me. And what would a young lady of such loveliness be doing wandering alone at night, with wolves and trolls and worse on the loose? Let me offer you hospitality, the hospitality of Loki, mightiest and wisest of the warriors of Asgard. I declare that I shall take you to my house and take care of you.' 'I cannot accept your offer, O brave and extremely good-looking one,' she said to me, eyes shining like twin sapphires in moonlight. 'For although you are obviously tall and extremely attractive, I have promised my father, a king who lives far from here, that I will not give my love to anyone who possesses one thing.' 'And what is that one thing?' I said, determined to bring her anything that she named. 'Mjolnir,' said the maiden, 'the hammer of Thor.' Ah! Pausing only to tell her to not go anywhere, my feet flew like the wind and I rushed to the great hall. They were all asleep and made no never mind. There was Thor, sleeping, his face on the gravy counter, hanging from the side, his hammer. Oh, there is a picture of the beautiful young woman. Only the nimble fingers of Loki, wiliest and cleverest, could have teased it from his belt without waking Thor. At this, the bear made a deep noise in the back of his throat. After glaring at him for a moment, the fox said, "Heavy it was, that hammer, heavier than people dream. It weighed as much as a small mountain. Too heavy to carry if you are not Thor, and yet not too much for my genius. I took off my shoes, which I said can walk on air, and I tied them to one of the handles. Then I snapped my fingers, and the hammer followed me. This time I hurried to the gates of Asgard. I unbarred them and walked through, followed, I do not need to tell you, by the hammer. The maiden was there. She was sitting on a boulder, and she was weeping. 'Why the tears, O loveliest itself?' I asked. At that, she looked at me with her tear-stained face. 'I weep because once I saw you, great and noble lord. I knew I could never love another, and yet I am doomed to give my heart to the one who lets me touch the hammer of Thor.' I reached out a hand and touched her cold, wet cheek. 'Dry your tears,' I told her, 'and behold the hammer of Thor.' She stopped crying, and she reached her delicate hand and held the hammer tightly. And I reckoned I could still get the hammer back into the hall before Thor woke up, but he would need to move on. And now, I said, about that kiss. For a moment, I thought she had begun to cry again, and then I knew she was laughing. But the noise she made was not a sweet, tinkling, maidenly laugh. It was a deep, crashing noise, like an ice sheet grinding against a mountainside. The maiden pulled my shoes from the hammer and dropped them to the ground. She held the hammer as if it were a feather. A wave of cold engulfed me, and I found myself looking up at her. To make matters worse, she wasn't even she anymore. She was a man. Well, not a man. Male, yes, yet big and high as a hill, icicles hanging from his beard. And he rather, said, 'After so long, it looks like one oaf, an Asgardian.'" Oops. And here is the picture of the maiden with the hammer. And then here is the ice giant with the hammer. Sorry. After so long, all it took was one oath, and Asgard is ours. Then the frost giant peered down at me, and he gestured with the hammer of Thor. "And you," he said in a deep, extremely satisfied voice, "you need to be something else." I felt my back pushing up. I felt a tail pushing its way out from the base of my spine. My fingers shrank into paws and claws. It wasn't for the first time I had turned into an animal. I was a horse once, you know. But it was the first time it had been imposed on me from the outside, and it wasn't a nice feeling, not a nice feeling at all. "It was worse for us," said the bear. "One moment you were fast asleep, dreaming about thunderstorms, and the next you're being scrunched into a bear. They turned the Allfather into an eagle." The eagle screeched, startling odd. "Rage!" it said. The giant laughed at us, waving my hammer around, while all the while he had forced Himdall to summon the Rainbow Bridge and exile the three of us here to Midgard, and there's no more to tell. There was silence in the tiny hut, only the crackle and spit of pine branches on the fire. Well, said Odd, gods or not, I can't keep feeding you. If this winter keeps going, I don't know if I can keep feeding me. We won't die, said the bear, because we can't die here. We'll get hungry, and we'll get more wild, more animal. It's something that happens when you have taken animal form. Stay in it too long, and you become what you pretend to be. When Loki was a horse, I don't want to talk about that, said the fox. And there's Loki getting turned into a fox. And then running away. So is that why winter isn't ending? Said Odd. The frost giants like winter. They are winter, said the bear. And if spring never comes, and if spring never comes, if summer doesn't happen, if the winter just goes on forever? The bear said nothing. The fox swished its tail impatiently. The bear looked to the eagle. It tilted its head back, and with one fiery yellow eye, it stared at Odd. Then it said, "Death!" Eventually, added the fox, not immediately. In a year or so, and some creatures will go south, but most of the people and the animals will die. It happened before, back when we were at war with the frost giants at the dawn of time. When they won, huge ice sheets would cover part of the world. When we won, if it took us 100,000 years, we always did, the ice sheets would retreat and the spring would return. But we were gods then, not animals. And I had my hammer, said Bear. Well then, said Odd, we'll set off as soon as it gets light enough to travel. Set off, said the fox. For where? Asgard, of course, said Odd, and he smiled his infuriating smile. Then he went back to his little bed, and he went back to sleep. Okay, we will read chapter 4 tomorrow. All right, see you guys later.